Hi, my name is Stu Bottorf, and I am a member of the Tampa Bay Computer Society, and I'm speaking today about trendy ideas from a proud tinkerer. This graphic that's on the screen is from our local state park here in Dunedin called Honeymoon Island. It's a beautiful place, and we were out there just this week taking some pictures of sunsets. Dunedin is also the home to the Toronto Blue Jays baseball team, and it's been their only home since they started. So we get to see baseball here in just another few days. Today I'm talking about the trendy ideas from a proud tinkerer. And this graphic that's on the screen comes from the Khan Academy, and they award this to students who display some tinkering ability, and it's positively awarded to them. I think it's kind of cute, and so I just put it up on my screen. Today we're going to talk about SoC devices. SoC, that's system on a chip. And it's always spelled this way with a little O in between the S and C. System on the chip devices have become quite popular today. And we're going to talk about the Raspberry Pi, that's that revolving icon up there on the top. And we'll talk a little bit about an Android app also. On the Raspberry Pi, we're going to talk about the Kodi Media Player. And then we're going to talk about some digital signage on the Android and Pi, and then we'll talk some about Internet of Things. We have a lot to cover, so let's dig right in. Hopefully, I'm speaking today with some fellow tinkerers. Tinkerers were people who were valued highly in another generation, and all modern computer systems today do require some tinkering by its users. To keep them alive, to keep them protected, and to keep them out of the repair shop. This graphic is a bell of a phone that was removed, and as you can see, it comes from the cover of a book called The Tinkerers, the amateur do-it-yourselfers and inventors who made America great. And this book is available. It's only like 2 years old, and it's on Amazon, and it's on Barnes & Noble. You can get the book. I think it's a good read. And you can hear about older inventors like Thomas Edison, and you can read about newer inventors that are out today that made things like the Segway. Tinkering has some less positive meanings today. And some of the meanings today, as I looked them up online, say a tinkerer might be a beginner, a dilettante, a loafer, a novice, or pretender. Once tinkering positively referred to successful inventors whose discoveries required meticulous trial and error testing. This photo shows the bottom of the old phone, and with its bell removed, and it just is a nice tinkering device. I grew up in a rural setting and spent much of my time, according to my mom, tinkering in the cellar with anything I could get my hands on. Old clocks, phones, radios, they were made to explore. They didn't always go back together again, but they were fun to explore. I built a crystal radio as a Cub Scout, and my crystal radio looked more like the one on the left, and I think the wire was around a toilet tube inside, and I had to move a jumper around to actually tune the radio. Later I made one like the one on the right that has a variable capacitor on and can be tuned. I read books and pamphlets such as these at the library about inventions and tinkering, and they were always great for me to read. I read biographies of Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Fulton, Colt, Westinghouse, and lots more. They were my heroes. I read popular science and created wish lists of things I wanted to buy from Lafayette Electronics and from Radio Shack. Those places aren't here anymore, and I built lots of Heath kits in my time. I built a complete stereo system. I built a VTVM and my very first transistor radio. Later, I got a degree in electronic technology where I schooled in vacuum tubes before transistors entered the classroom. Later, I worked 14 years in an engineering lab where I was able to produce aircraft instrumentation, such as this servo temperature gauge. And here at this engineering lab, I was actually paid to tinker, and that was fun. Eventually, I was able to earn a couple patents from the place, and they're still there with my name on, although nobody uses them anymore because analog measurement on aircraft is not used anymore. It's all digital. Along the way, I picked up skills in computers, and I started with CPM 86, and then I went to work for the public school system here in Pinellas County, and they have 115 different schools in the county. So it's a big district. And at the time, there was 110 non-techie librarians at 110 different schools that were trying to convert and put online their library collections. And they wanted to replace the old 3x5 cards in the drawers. And so I got to do that with some Apple IIes, some very expensive IBM PS2 computers with micro-channel architecture. And we eventually went and used Windows on those machines, and also Novell. And Novell was a real eye-opener for me because it was the first time I ever networked things together. And we installed something called Follett Circulation Plus on all these machines. Luckily, Follett had the software to do this. It was very expensive, and it was not open source, but at least it worked on almost anything. And then later on, I went to another job where I was managed the network in a parochial school. And I was lucky enough, I went at the time, they had $300,000 to spend on a new network. And we put in network infrastructure and put in Windows servers. We started with Server 2000, and we started with Windows 2000 on all the individual machines. And later we progressed and got Exchange Server, and we had a nice network, 100 Active Directory users, and almost 200 network connections spread across 8 buildings on our campus. Tech problems happen daily, and as the only support person on site, I saw Windows in my sleep. I needed a change of pace at home, so I started to dabble in open source software and Linux. Recently, I've included 2 more, and that's Android and Chrome, which I use on a fairly regular basis. Both, incidentally, Android and Chrome come from a Linux source. I bought into Linux early on, more than 20 years ago, long before Ubuntu, when Mandrake was still alive, and Red Hat was still free. I remember the thrill after weeks of testing, experimenting, and failure when I first successfully booted Linux into a graphical work desktop environment with discarded Windows hardware at a LUG install fest. LUG was Linux users groups that were around 15 years ago, and probably very few exist today. I now host 3 monthly TBCS club meetings on open source, Linux, and Chromebooks. And every now and then I do a Tinker seminar. So as you can see, I'm still inclined to tinker. System on a chip devices developed only a few years ago, and the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi led the way. Since they use ARM technology, software must be recoded from x86 standards. Here is a comparison list of 90 SoC boards currently available. I've listed some extra ones here, and I'll just show them to you. This is a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it's a very small board, but this board now sells for $5. And this is a chip. I've got one of these on order from Hong Kong, and it costs $9. And I needed to pay an extra $19 for an HDMI output on the card. But I'm looking forward to this. This looks interesting. And I have another one here that I thought you might be interested in. This is called the Latte Panda. And you can buy it. This has an Intel chip inside of it, and you can put Windows on it, and you can buy it with a Windows license for $119 or $79 without the Windows. And it's got Arduino support pins on it. It's got Raspberry Pi support pins on it. It would make a very nice board. So far, I haven't ordered one of these, but it looks interesting. And I don't know if I get it with Windows because, as we all know, that Windows license would be tied to this very board. And if you did anything to destroy the board, you'd certainly lose your $40 of Windows support. This is a new one that just came out at the end of last month, and this is an ASUS board called the Tinker board, and it's supposed to be a rival to the Raspberry Pi. It's got more memory, and it's got a faster chip in it, and it actually sells for double the price of the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi sells for about $35. So let's look at the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is about the size of a credit card. So this green board is about the size of a credit card. And it's got some GPIO headers that's on one side. All the components are on one side of the board, and there on the back of the board, you install SD RAM card, and that becomes your hard drive. Let's just walk you around this board. Let me just put this on, and you can probably see where I'm at. This is for the power connection. It uses a micro USB. Over here is the HDMI, which is output sound and video to a monitor or to a television. This is an Ethernet port. This is two USB ports, USB 2. This is audio out, analog audio out, and this is composite video out. This board, when it first came out, only had 256 megabytes of RAM. It was underpowered. I bought one and was given one, and they still work. The boards, it's amazing. They're a good board. And later on, I bought one of these, their newest one, It's called the Pi 3 Model B. And the Pi 3 Model B now has 1 gigabyte of RAM on it, and it still has the micro USB power input. It's got a composite audio video jack. You use the same connector in here as what you use into a tape deck or something like that. It's got the Ethernet port. It's got 4 USB 2 ports. It's the GPIO pins have expanded to 40, and it's got the Broadcom chip, and it's got onboard Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. That's what I really like, so I don't have to waste the USB port putting the dongle in it to get Wi-Fi. It's a nice board, and that, like I say, $35, and they're sold by the Raspberry Pi organization. It's located in England, and it's a nonprofit group, and they have made their aim to try to give a Raspberry Pi to every student in their school systems so that children learn more about programming. And by the way, the Pi and Raspberries stands for the Python computer language. The computer credit card size, and tech writers still love this $35 computer, and one has to scrounge enough cables to turn on a Raspberry Pi. Let me just come back and I'll show you. One has to scrounge up their own keyboard, their own mouse, an HDMI monitor, speakers, and Ethernet connection. And after you do that, you need to journey to Walmart to pick up a SD RAM card. And that's the Raspberry Pi. Let me show you. They're having their 5th birthday celebration next week. They have several user groups for Pis in United Kingdom, and they meet on a regular basis, children and adults. It sounds like a nice thing. Again, the Raspberry Pi costs about $35. Might cost a little more by the time you get it here in the States. And the power supply, you have to buy one of those, a micro USB. And for the new Raspberry Pi 3, which would probably be the one you're going to get, you should get at least a 2-amp power supply. And the micro SD card might cost you another $10. You need a USB keyboard and mouse, an HDMI capable TV or monitor, a cable, and then Wi-Fi or internet connectivity, and the case is optional. We're lucky at our club. We now have the use of a 3D printer, and one of my friends has made me cases for all my Pis, and they really look nice in their case. And the cases it's a good example of what a 3D printer can do. Today we're going to talk about putting Kodi, a media player, on the Raspberry Pi. It's a great first project for Raspberry Pi because it doesn't require any Linux skills, and it makes a perfect first Pi for everybody. Kodi is a media player that's been around. I just wanted to show you this. It was in my slides. The new Raspberry Pis use micro disks, micro SD, and you'll notice you might need one of these adapters if you're going to use this between a computer and your Raspberry Pi. So just be careful. If you need an adapter, get one. A lot of times adapters are sold right on the shelf with the bubble packs for the cards, and they don't cost you any extra money. you can buy one with that pretty little Pi on it from the Raspberry Pi organization. So let's get on. We're going to install Kodi, a media player. It once was called the Xbox Media Center, XBMC, and some people might still know it as that. It worked on a game controller, and people have been developing this for years and years, and it really works very well. Kodi has software that you can install it almost anywhere. There's a Windows installer, there's Linux, there's 2 different kinds of Apple software for the OS X and for the iOS, and you can put it on Android. You can even put it on FreeBSD. So it comes in lots of different flavors. And what we're going to use on Linux is a version that's got something called LibreElec. It's a version of the Linux software that we're going to run. And the byword of LibreElec is just enough Linux to run Kodi. So that's what we will be using. Kodi for Windows is just about done. They're releasing this with a touch-friendly screen, so it will work better for people who have those pads and touch pads and things for Windows. It'll work well. And they're going to call it Leah in honor of the late Carrie Fisher. When you get a Raspberry Pi, there's a couple things you need to learn to do. You need to get software from them. Yes, you can buy it from them, but it's expensive to wait and get it from England when you can download it and it's free and you can get it right away. And you get it right on their site, click the downloads, and there is a great installer called Noobs, N-O-O-B-S. Noobs is an acronym that stands for New Out-of-Box System. And it's very easy to set up. And we'll, normally it's set up to run Raspbian, which is the default program. But you'll see there's other things that can be loaded on it. Don't get too excited if you see this Windows 10 IoT Core. That really doesn't allow you to run Windows on your machine. It is something that will only work with Internet of Things, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. You'll need a Windows laptop with an SD card slot to download and transfer the files to the micro SD card. Or it's possible to buy a card, but if you buy a card, you won't have the fun of building your own system. You need the Noobs software, and I left a link here as to where it's available. And you'll need 2 utilities: an SD card formatter and a BitTorrent, the QBitTorrent. It's a very nice utility that lets you download files that are very large from an outside source over the internet. If anything happens, the file transfer resumes, and you don't have to worry about starting all over again. It's the best Windows, QBitTorrent is the best Windows open source torrent client that allows you to download very large file systems over 1 gigabyte securely and rapidly from a torrent host such as Raspberry Pi. And I recommend getting the full Noobs program because it will just work better for you. Finally, when you download this file, you'll use QBitTorrent to get the file, When it comes down, it will be a zipped file. And nice thing about Windows is it will automatically open that file system, and you won't have to get a separate utility to do that. When you get the full file downloaded, which will take you, who knows, over the internet, depending upon your connection speed, but I know it's no quicker than about 20 minutes to download. When it comes down, you open that zip file, which it will open in Windows. Just click one item in there and Control A for all, and then just drag everything over and put it on the SD card. When it all comes over to the SD card, that takes a long time because thousands of files are being transferred from your unzipped download onto the card. Now, after you do that, then you take the card and put it into the, let me just go over this one more time. These are the directions for Windows. Download and install qBittorrent. Download and install the SD card formatter. Download noobs using qBittorrent. You aren't going to get much less than 10 minutes. Format the micro SD card. It's going to take some time, but you want to make sure you format that card again, even if it's brand new out of the box. You want to make sure you got the full size of the card, and if you use one of these cards on the Pi or in a camera or anywhere else, sometimes they'll format to less than their full capability, and you really want the whole card. Then you have to remove and then reinsert the micro SD card, and then you can the noobs will unzip, and then you drag everything from the noobs download folder over onto the micro SD card, and then afterwards you can properly eject the SD card. At the Raspberry Pi, we're moving to the Pi. This is the fun part. And we're going to hook up the HDMI video cable. We have to connect the analog audio if necessary, connect a keyboard, mouse, have the Wi-Fi, have your Wi-Fi login information available, or connect via an Ethernet network cable. Lots of times when we go to connect up Wi-Fi, we think we might know how to get on, but if we don't have it down pat, we'll never actually connect. And connect the power at the micro USB connector, and that will only take you a few minutes. And here I have some screenshots. They're not great, but it will say, I'll show you what you do. When the Raspberry Pi boots up, it will come up to this screen, and it will only show one item on the menu, and there's two drop downs down here on the bottom. Let me just highlight this again. Two drop downs here, and you have to select the keyboard and the language you want the program to run in. Select those both, and up at the top, there's a place up here where you have to set up your Wi-Fi network if you're going to do that. And remember to have your ID and your password available to go. And then when you start up your system, the wireless will connect. But hang around, make sure it really connects. And then after it connects, you'll notice that menu I had on the front, it only had one item on it. Now all of a sudden has 4 more items displayed on it. What you want to do is highlight the one here that says LibreElec and Kodi, and select it, and then it will warn you and say, hey, I'm going to take that information that's here on the card, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to reformat your card into this new system. And you have to say yes, let it go. And again, this will take some time, take a break, but at least 10, 15 minutes. And when it's done, it will say, okay, I'm done. And then you can boot up your new Raspberry Pi Kodi player. You'll notice the sync screen comes on whenever you turn on your Raspberry Pi. This is a sync that's between the HDMI output on the Raspberry Pi and your monitor or TV or whatever, and they actually sync to the best possible resolution between the two monitors. It's an automatic thing. It just happens. And pretty soon you'll see the Kodi splash screen come up, and then you get the full Kodi menu. Here's where you can add in your videos. You can get music programs like TuneIn or whatever. And you can see some live stations on video, but you see a lot more with files. I'm not actually going to take the time to go through setting up the whole Kodi player. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube on how to set that up. You won't have any trouble with it. So I'm just going to leave that there. Kodi player is fun. It'll cost you probably not more than $50 to come up with the supplies, maybe $55, and you'll have it. They also sell Kodi boxes at different places you can find them. They look like this, but they're Android inside instead of a Raspberry Pi. They cost around $50, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending upon how much RAM, how much ROM is inside. Some have remotes, some don't have remotes. Do avoid these ones that say jailbroken or free HBO or free something else. These jailbroken things, they charge you a extra fee to put this stuff on your system, but these links don't generally last very long. It's all over the world, these links are being taken down by people. So I wouldn't spend your money on this. Also, there's been people just this week that were arrested in England for selling jailbroken Kodi players. But they do sell the Kodi boxes, and they aren't a bad deal for the money. This is a link if you'd like to read more about it, about mass piracy that's flying largely under the radar on Kodis. But you don't break the law with using the Kodi box. Everything's legal. Here I had a friend who was getting an RV or running an RV, and somebody told him he could buy one of these boxes. They wanted to sell him this box for $349. When I went to look at this link online, it was a very simple player, just like this $40 Kodi player that was on the other page. And so finally, I advised him not to get it. My son-in-law bought one of these boxes. This is a Kodi box that actually has a tuner inside of here. So he can plug his outside antenna into here, plus his internet, plus his all his Kodi items. And he can do everything in one box, control what goes to the TV. He likes this box, and it costs half the price of what my friend was going to pay for this one. This is half the price. And they do make a cheaper box that doesn't have the VHF and UHF tuners in them, and that costs $115, and that's quite competitive. If we took a quick break here, Lots of Cody and Pi links are online. Just compose a Google search, you'll get thousands of hits, and you'll probably get better results than what I did. I just wanted to say that. We're going on digital signage. Digital signage, you notice the signs every day. We see them when we go out to eat. They're around, and we see them in hotels. We see them in churches, colleges, medical, hospitals. I can't get over how many of them they put in hospitals around me. Stores are using these. They sell things in the stores while you're already in the store. They're trying to sell you something else. Restaurants, they use them all over the place. And highway billboards, those bright billboards, they're out there along the way. All digital signage has one source, and they all work pretty much the same way. Not that they're interchangeable, but they all work the same way. They use a high resolution display, some sort of display. A media player sits right in back of the display. And by the way, the media player that's used the most with digital signage is a Chrome box. $200 box sits in back. And they're kind of rugged, and they can be networked well. They work very good for digital signage. You need a server of some sort with the media involved, and you need some kind of network tying everything together. And that's how digital signage works. It's not too complicated. Displays can be vertical or horizontal. Remember the signs like this in the New York subways, or we can have the more standard signs. Somehow these vertical signs are said by some people that we react better to them as humans. I wanted to have a sign for my church. And we had a sign in the lobby. It was an old bulletin board. It was tacky. People didn't take down notices. It always looked junky. And I decided we put up a TV monitor in place of it. And we did that. And then we found that my smart TV wasn't smart enough to play videos and fixed drawings. It would only play fixed JPEGs. It wouldn't play PNGs. And I could put a bunch of JPEGs on a USB stick and put it in, and they just cycle through and repeat. And it worked fine. But I wanted something better. And so that's where I started with this digital signage. My ideal display would have pictures involved in it. I want pictures. I want some nice text. I want to be able to have different colors, make nice text stand out, bold. I wanted to have a calendar with upcoming meetings. That would be nice. It would be nice on Tuesday if the Monday events had just scrolled off the calendar and there'd only be things that go on for the rest of the week, and it wouldn't bother announcing what went on yesterday. So I thought,
you got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thought that would be nice. And an RSS feed, I wanted a date and time and RSS feed. I found out I couldn't do all that. And so I found some digital signage providers. They brand their media boxes. You sign up for monthly fees. You have to use their software to produce content. And graphic artists are available to help you. But fees for our nonprofit really took us out of competition. So I bought a little Android box for $35, and I used Dropbox and something called DropSync, which is free. And I used a utility called Video Kiosk, and it works very good. I was going to show you here, I made up, this is just how I'm using it. I use an animation program that puts slides up 4 seconds a piece on the screen, and they come up and they display. And so that's kind of pretty. And I just wanted to show you over here. I'm still researching some lesser ideas. XIBO is one, Pi Signage, and Pi Presents. I do want some credits if you're interested in how I did the signage. I used something called ad text for online drawings. Animation, I used imagination, and I converted it with Handbrake. So those were things I used, and they worked well. I wanted to talk about Internet of Things quickly. I'll skip the Internet of Things. There's 2 utilities on the Pi. There's a Snappy and there's a Win 10. AT&T has come out with another one, and Google and Amazon all have different technologies. None of them work together, but Internet of Things is out there. If you want to see what things are on Internet of Things, there's a website called iotlist.co, not C-O-M, just C-O. And you'll find this list just goes on and on forever and ever and ever, and there's things there. Things like a toothbrush that reports when you brush your teeth. I don't know that we need that, but there was an unfortunate incident that happened back in October where somebody got into routers that exist in people's homes. How many people still have routers that have a user that's ADMIN and maybe a password 1234, or ADMIN, ADMIN, login password? Well, obviously, lots of people besides John Podesta still had default passwords, and they exist. And it took, this was a denial of services attack, and it took the internet down for a while, and we can expect other kinds of things. This is an article that just came out last weekend, and it was from the New York Times, and it talks about another hijacking, the hijacking, the same incident a few months later, and they had some ideas of using a guest network that would help. This graphic is very scary. This is billions of devices online with Internet of Things. It looks like where we are right now, there's 5 billion insecure and maybe another billion of semi-secure devices online. Anytime you line up, you're getting close to being around things that could hurt. You know, we looked at a toothbrush, it looked awful, but we know that pacemakers sometimes are monitored online. And so I just wanted to say that Internet of Things, I've kind of laid off on it because I haven't quite decided it's right for me. I have some links at the end of this presentation. And you can see I've got 3 pages of links here. And if you download the presentation, you can have the whole thing. You can go clicking away, but I'm sure you'll find good devices on your own. My email address is sbottorf@gmail.com. On my website, you can always find me at fossig.com. And we meet 3 times a month at the clubhouse, and I meet some other times. I'm also starting 2 new Chromebook classes in March and April, and we got 8 people and 9 people signed up for those classes already. So 17 more people are getting Chromebooks, which is kind of nice. And I'm glad I could be with you today. That's my presentation. So David, I think I've exhausted my time.
Yes. But as I said, we want to thank you, Stu. As I said, if anybody has any questions, we can probably take 5 minutes to answer a couple questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
And I want to thank you for that. We did have one question that went back when you were talking about the Cody box, and I think you touched on it with a slide, but when he said he read where the Cody box is legal, but the add-ons are pirated and illegal, and he wanted to know about that.
I think they probably are illegal. I think anytime you're getting proprietary content and you aren't paying for it, you know, it's just like stealing cable from the guy next door. You know, it's not proper. Whether you're going to get caught or not, I don't know. But I doubt that those things shouldn't really interest us as tinkerers. You know, if we just had a lust for that material, I guess we'd want to get it. But you'll find that those links, the good links like that for HBO, Showtime, and so on, they don't exist for long. They go down real quick. Like you might only have a week, and then the link moves someplace else. I'd be careful with those links because we don't know who's watching you, but we know Uncle Sam can see you, you know?
Okay. I got one more question. Basically, it's my own. What do you think about these Nook boxes that are coming out?
I don't know. I don't know anything about them, to tell you the truth, Dave. These are boxes from Barnes & Noble?
No, not Nook. Okay. NUC. I did that the last time people asked me about that.
Okay. The NUC devices. I mentioned the Chrome box.
Yes.
That's like a NUC device. But it doesn't, it probably, you can't run Windows on it. But there are little boxes like that. They look very nice. I know you can buy them with Windows, you know, or you can put Windows on them, and they're kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, as I said, in about a couple months, I can let you know because I think I'm going to be getting one. Okay.
The nice thing about those is normally you can take those boxes and get some Velcro and put them on the back of a monitor, and you don't really have to take up space on your counter anymore for a computer. You know, yep. It just hides it out of the way. Yep. Hey, before we leave, I had one paragraph I wanted to say at the end. To summarize, today I confess to being a lifelong tinkerer. Hopefully, some of my tinkering spirit will resonate with you, my fellow group members, or should I say group tinkerers. If you have not played with the new SoC devices, I encourage you to buy one or two and see how powerful these SoC devices really are. They can be fun and frustrating, but they do satisfy and they entertain inquiring minds. Plus, you'll understand a bit more about computing. So thanks for having me. I've enjoyed this.